The Brass Bull despises a lot of stuff. He hates French pastries and baguettes, ganache, eclair, croissant. He hates long walks on moonlit beaches, reading romance novels by firelight, sharing his complex emotions with a trusted confidant, and he really hates Slaanesh. I don't blame him. They're pretty hateable. They're preening and prissy and those elements, amongst a list of negative character traits about 88 miles long, is reason enough for the Blood God to goad Taurox towards a deathmatch with N'Kari, and Brass Balls is happy to provide. Beastmen will be contributing more cowbell to the Warhammer 3 symphony here. Not a full minibus this time around, but the Blood Beast Slaughterhorn and his rune-tortured axes will be joined by a Gorbel and the Bloodbrute Behemoth Ghorgon. Very creative with their naming conventions, those coordinate chaps, but certainly a powerful command HQ with good mobility, line-breaking potential, and ability to rip and tear through large targets in seconds flat. They'll want to immediately isolate the Fiends and N'Kari, then chop them down to size. But first, they have to catch them, because if there's any race that can outmaneuver Beastmen without too much issue, it's the Despoilers of the Dark Prince. A couple Centaurs, a bunch of Gore Herd, some with dual axes for that relatively new bonus versus infantry, and Poison Warhounds to slow down enemy fast movers. On the other side is the Carnival of Carnal Lust, Fiends and Mirror Guard in the Vanguard, some of the coolest models and animations in the game on those Fiends, and the Princes of Perfection, Slaaneshi Spears with Perfect Vigor and Soporific Musk. Leading the army is N'Kari, the Keeper of Secrets, a fearsome duelist and terrifying freak from the ether. Passively damages routing units and heals when they are completely destroyed. Phantasmagoria, Wit Stealer Sword, Willing Prey, and Lash of Slaanesh are his signature abilities here. Now, against Beastmen or Slaanesh, I'd argue you typically don't want to Vanguard anything. The risk far outweighs the potential benefits because an ambush can easily turn on its head if they deploy somewhere on top of you with more units than you can handle, and even if you do manage to get a good spot in deployment, there's a good chance they'll just run away from you anyway. So the Beastmen aren't vanguarding here, but Slaanesh is, and they're in a nasty little hiding spot with a bunch of Hellstriders right in the corner of the map, and that will be the focal point of their strategy here. Incredibly flaccid, limp dick whip from N'Kari. I get he's warming up. Damn, pop a blue chew or something, that did nothing. Centaurs are like, is it in yet? And the rest of the horde's probably snickering as they move up. Do not let a Keeper of Secrets catch you laughing at them though, especially not N'Kari. He will skin you alive and torture your soul for like 69,000 years just for the fun of it. It's gonna be a monster melee mash for sure. Would really like to see some range units for Slaanesh, honestly. I get it's not a core element of their tabletop experience, but Age of Sigmar was right to give them Blissbar bows and some more kiting troops. Marauder Cav with Javs just aren't that interesting at this point. But as Taurox turns on the BFG division and headbangs his way into enemy battle lines, the Slaaneshi trap is sprung. Fiends and N'Kari will pressure the center, while the Hellstriders make their way in from behind. Now, Fiends are definitely better flankers than they are frontline brawlers, but they are more than capable of pounding Ungors, and those Rune-Tortured Axes will drink deep from the soul sense of ROR infantry. All the while, the four-armed Ghorgon wants to take a fight with N'Kari, and a big-time ambush hitting home, and it was not scouted out at all. They were hidden to the trees for most of that. There was probably a small section there where you would have seen on the minimap if you were really paying attention. But that's going to be brutal. I mean, they got a complete sandwich here, and the Marauders touching from the fronts. Centaurs were not ready for it. They're going to get caught out and destroyed, just absolutely manhandled by that devastating flanker charge. They're into the rear, though. That unit is going to be dealt with much more convincingly. They've been isolated and cut down by Centaurs and the Poison Warhounds, who are ready to engage with them. The Hellstriders had more space or more ground to cover in that backfield over there, whereas they had more cover coming in from the tree line over on the east side of the battlefield. Really nicely timed though. Probably should have been scouted out and avoided if you're the Beastmen, but it happens, was well executed and will be well rewarded here. Beastmen are squishy. If they ever get caught out, they are typically very sad. But combat has begun in earnest now all across the meadow. Cows being put out to pasture, taken to the farm upstate. N'Kari's Witsealer Sword reaping souls with every single swing. Those pincers bisecting, decapitating everywhere he marches. And now a big-time duel with the Ghorgon, the Bloodbrute Behemoth. And that's a fight where if N'Kari hits the Ghorgon with all of his debuffs, Witsealer Sword and Willing Prey and all that, he should take a commanding lead in the opening stages. But the Ghorgon has access to more consistent healing and also a lot more bonus versus large, obviously 30 bonus versus large, while N'Kari has 0 Gorbel, in and amongst the Mirror Guard right now, he would take a very long time to kill Armored Chaos Warriors in melee, so not really where he wants to be. And Taurox and the Ghorgon are considering going back to help out, but it looks like that engagement is already about to be wrapped up. Really, whenever any faction here, the Beastmen or Slaanesh, get a clean charge off, cavalry is just going to evaporate. That's true, honestly, for the Gore Herd and for the Ungors as well. Most of the infantry, really only the Mirror Guard, are resilient in any way, shape, or form when it comes to taking frontal or rear charges. Centaurs coming in to overlap the engagements. Taurox and the Ghorgon are teaming up to take down all comers, and N'Kari is their top priority. The Prince of Pleasure and Pain is taking a lot more of the latter right now, almost down to half HP. Ghorgon's gotten some good swings in, and so N'Kari is going to pull what I would consider to be a pro-gamer move. Drop that Phantasmagoria, get all those Beastmen dazed and confused, and then get the hell out. Terror and a -16 leadership penalty. Very impactful. You can see a lot of routing units, and the Centaur is just absolutely melted under that devastating attack. And he'll use that AoE freeze to attempt to, well, I would have thought to escape, but actually he's going back in. And this is not a terrible idea, especially when you're backed up by the Bringers of Beguilement, Exalted Demonettes, and frankly, a lot better infantry in this grind right now. Then N'Kari can use his mass and his speed to strike at the unprotected flanks of these single entities and then melt back into the shadows before they can really get a good hold on him. Of course, that means if you miss micro, you might be in trouble. But let's take a look at the Bringers of Beguilement here. They have some really cool abilities. They have Charmed Contact Effect, -8 melee attack, which is going to stack up with a lot of the other debuffs we've been seeing from Slaanesh thus far, and it's pretty much meant the Gore Herd, who have that 5 bonus versus infantry and are pretty good against unarmored targets, have been melted. I mean, there aren't a lot of infantry left on the Beastmen side, and Slaanesh feels like they have a pretty convincing advantage right now, but that might be a little bit misleading because of those 3 single entities on the Beastmen side, that expensive command HQ, the Ghorgon, the Gorbel, and Taurox the Brass Bull. Well, there's not a ton of like halberd or armor-piercing infantry on the Slaaneshi side, so while they certainly have the numbers, dealing with that monster mash is going to be pretty difficult, especially if N'Kari gets caught out. But he's been microed fairly well thus far. Maybe took a little bit too much of a mono-e-mono engagement with the Bloodbrute Behemoth and took more HP damage in the early stages than he should have. Got another, I think, Phantasmagoria coming down because he's afraid with those Poison Warhounds nipping at his heels. And then, of course, there's the Foe Seeker Gorbel that's directly behind, and he really wanted to take a chunk out of N'Kari's ass with that big old man-cleaving axe. Here comes the Ghorgon, and here comes Taurox, and now they're going to just start pinballing between all this remaining infantry. And while there are some spears in there, the Regiment of Renowned Spears have 15 bonus versus infantry, good stats, and of course that perfect vigor, so they'll be surviving well into the late game and still hitting. Oh yeah, the Ghorgon coming in. Oh my god, it's one of my favorite animations. That's so sick. Just seeing it lift up an entire section of an enemy infantry formation and send them sprawling. But yeah, the perfect vigor of those devoted marauders will certainly help as this battle stretches into the mid and late stages. There isn't like that hard-hitting, chosen halberd type unit that will really anchor the battle line and kill monsters. Willing Prey and Soporific Musk is significantly debuffing that Gorbel, who did activate Heroic Killing Blow. His dueling stats just plummeted while N'Kari came in, but as soon as those debuffs wear off, N'Kari's again starting to take a ton of damage, and that Keeper of Secrets is dropping very low. He's at 1,300 health now, 111 kills, down to 784 HP. The Ghorgon and the Gorbel are gooning up on N'Kari, and N'Kari is a master gooner, and he's been outgooned. It's over for the Keeper of Secrets. He's gone, and that's a huge loss and a big micro mistake. I think he's been used very well up until that stage, but I don't think N'Kari had to fully commit to deal with the Ghorgon right now. Let the infantry just kind of wear out the monsters for the moment. There's not a whole lot for the Beastmen to do other than just pinball between these remaining infantry formations. And if you just cycle charge with N'Kari on the flank, instead of taking a straight up fight, you're gonna get a much better result there. And there is just no real reason to let N'Kari die. That's a big loss. And the balance bar is now in favor of the Beastmen. Still though, as we've seen many times in the past, single entities and groups of them can make all kinds of problems for infantry blobs in late game, causing terror, what have you. But remember, Slaanesh is immune to psychology. A lot of their units don't really care about the terror side of things. Sweet Sorrow Stamina Amplifier on the Fiends of Slaanesh, and While the Bloodbrute is still quite good in this chaff clearing type of role, remember it's not really his ideal situation. More importantly, he's got that big hitbox, decent but unspectacular armor and animations that will carry him into the middle of the horde, so he can and will start to get dragged down here, which the strength from flesh regen will only partially counteract. It looks like the Fiends are pretty much donezo. They are 1 or 2 hits from crumbling out. Ghorgon is still going to work, but like I said, there's a ton of Mirror Guard. There's still that 15 bonus versus infantry ROR that has good leadership. And there's the Bringers of Beguilement, the Exalted Demonettes, and they have tons of debuffs for things like Taurox and for the Ghorgon. And they have a lot of armor piercing, so they can actually deal some good damage to Taurox too if they get a full surround off for sure. And it looks like the Beastmen are taking a commanding lead on the balance of power, but that might be a little bit misleading here. Some of these Slaanesh troops are going to return to the fold. The Ghorgon just routed off. Taurox is taking some leadership penalties right now, and he's well below half HP, and the Ghorgon is surrounded. They're popping a ton of army abilities and stacking a lot of debuffs to kind of bring Taurox's stats down into a middling level. Narcissism was popped there to silence him. He got hit by So Perfect Musk. He got hit by the Charmed Contact effect, and that means instead of hitting it like, what, 65, 70 melee attack, he's hitting it more like 35, 40, 45 melee attack, and that is a substantial difference. Not to mention, he's exhausted. I'm pretty sure Taurox doesn't have perfect vigor, so he's gonna get worse as the battle wears on, as will the Ghorgon. But it still looks pretty bad for Slaanesh. They have lost their Fiends, which would have been the mass and the armor piercing that would have really helped prevent this Ghorgon from cycle charging. Right now, they can kind of leave, they can let Taurox just do his thing. The Brass Bull just rampage in the middle of everything, and then the Ghorgon will come in from the flank, striking with those cyclone forearms, ripping and tearing everything asunder. And they are seriously running out of bodies here. And in fact, it might be army losses momentarily. Slaanesh is hanging on. It's not over yet. Taurox is gonna rout here, actually. I'm surprised. Here comes Slaanesh. They might still be in this one. More spears with a full surround, and Taurox, oh, he is so close to routing off. When those Demonettes get a full surround on a single entity like Taurox, they put in a lot of work. They hit really damn hard. They have like 65 melee attack. They're an actual problem. They're the big reason that Taurox is dropping, and he might die here. If the Demonettes get on top of Taurox and run him down, Slaanesh might be back in this one. Now, the Bloodbrute Behemoth definitely has some solo carry potential, and he's still at half HP and has good leadership, but that's starting to drop too. I mean, you're seeing his morale. There's some morale shots going on for sure. Ghorgon just routed for the second time. I'm not sure he'll have any more impact on this battle. Once units routed twice like that, without even getting back into combat, they're usually just done for. So it might be up to the Ghorgon himself. Full surround off from the infantry. It's really close to army losses for Slaanesh, but not quite there yet. And Strength from Flesh is doing some serious work for the Ghorgon right now. That regen is just so helpful. Tons of routing on the Slaaneshi battle lines. And it looks like Taurox has returned and has stabilized the Ghorgon. Not looking stable back there, but is marching his way back over. With a rear charge from either of those single entities, it might be enough for the Beastmen to snatch victory from the claws of defeat. It's always a pleasure to see the Bloodbrute Behemoth go to work. And I think the Beastmen have this now that Taurox is back into the fray and hitting from the flank and rear. That should precipitate even more routing and the long-awaited army losses. Killing blow from the Ghorgon. He's back in. Leadership, just a sliver of it remaining, but not wavering, and that's going to be the end of the game. They've got it. Wow, that was pretty crazy. A lot of swings there at the end. Maybe would have still just been too much to deal with the Ghorgon at the end of the day. And it's interesting when you think about what happened with N'Kari there. I don't want to oversell the N'Kari moment as this horrendous type play. It wasn't. It was obvious he was trying to get as much use out of his Windsealer Sword buff and the Willing Prey debuff as possible. Striking when you're hitting for like 900 weapon strength and your enemy melee defense is at 0 is a good idea generally, but he didn't notice that those buffs and debuffs had worn off. And an attack animation carried him into range of both the Ghorgon and the Ghorgon, and then he just got gored, right? Like he just evaporated in 2 attacks straight up. It's always the risk with Slaanesh. You get to always pick and choose your engagements because you're just so fast, and you can punish anything with good positioning and micro, but if you make a mistake, you die faster than just about anything too. very high risk, very high reward type faction. And in that situation, Hikari went for the duel and then got deleted. But the Fiends did great, Hikari did great, and some really interesting and fun engagements in that battle. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.